let's begin with her today. Pallavi, you got the text?
Yes, Rangada.
Okay, then will you read the para?
Yes, Rangada.
Okay, all truth of works.
All truth of works must depend upon the truth of being. All active existence must be in its inmost reality a sacrifice of works offered by Prakriti, Purusha, nature offering to the supreme and infinite soul the desire of the multiple finite soul within her. Life is an altar to which she brings her workings and the fruits of her work and lays them before whatever aspect of the divinity the consciousness in her has reached, for whatever result of the sacrifice the desire of living soul can seize on as its immediate or its highest goal. According to the grade of consciousness and being which the soul has reached in nature, will be the divinity it worships, the delight which it seeks, and the hope for which it sacrifices. And in the movement of immutable Purusha in nature, all is and must be interchanged. For existence is one, and its divisions must found themselves on some law of mutual dependence, each growing by each and living by all. Where sacrifice is not willingly given, nature exacts it by force. She satisfies the law of her living. A mutual giving and receiving is the law of life, without which it cannot for one moment endure. And this fact is the stamp of the divine creative will on the world. It has manifested in its being. The proof that with sacrifice as the eternal companion, the Lord of creatures has created all these existences. The universal law of sacrifice is the sign that the world is of God and belongs to God, and that life is his dominion and house of worship, and not a field for the self-satisfaction of the independent ego, not the fulfillment of the ego. That is only our crude and obscure beginning, but the discovery of God, worship and the seeking of divine and the infinite through a constantly enlarging sacrifice, culminating in a perfect self-giving founded on a perfect self-knowledge, is that to which the experience of life is at last intended to lead.
It's a deal. We have to try and get to the inner meaning of what he's saying. Okay. So I just point out to you 2-3 sentences which are crucial to this para. The first one is on the next page, where sacrifice is not willingly given, so nature exacts it by force. Okay. And the next one, she satisfies the law of her living. Okay. Nature. A mutual giving and receiving is a law of life. Here is a crucial sentence you have to understand. A mutual giving and receiving is a law of life. This is the whole idea of sacrifice. And all sacrifice ultimately goes to the Lord, because he is the one who has created the world. So let's have a look at, again, the idea of gradation comes in here very much. Okay? He will also tell you that. So we'll read each sentence and see what he has to say. All truth of works must depend upon the truth of being. And truth of being, he explains in the next line. Okay. So all truth of works, there are some works which are not really based on truth. Huh? Whenever there is cheating, whenever there is stealing, very obviously that work is not based on truth. Okay. So, and it is based on the truth of being, truth of existence, truth of the in matter itself. All active existence must be in its inmost reality a sacrifice of works offered by Prakriti to Purusha. So this is also a very clear sentence. You have to see. All active existence. Active existence is only at the physical level. Level 1. Because existence is not active in the higher planes of consciousness. Okay, keep that in mind. Level 2, there is no active existence. There is existence, but it's not active. Okay. They're immutable. Now we have seen that immutability means no action. Okay. And in the highest, okay, power is there to create, but the creation is done at a lower level. Okay, it is not done at the supramental level. The potentiality is there, and that potentiality is delegated to others to carry it out. It's very similar to an organization of a company or a multinational, if you want. Right at the top is the CEO, Chief Executive Officer or Manager or whatever you want. He is the one who takes all the decisions, and everything that happens below that level, assistant managers, supervisors, and even workers, and the products to be made, everything is decided by the top. So that's a lot of the sacrifice. But he is not acting directly. So when it comes down, there's a gradation, and the details are worked out by the lower grades. Okay. So that's what I mean by active existence. Active existence at the lowest level. Okay. Everything must be a sacrifice of works. And what is sacrifice? Again, we come back to that. A mutual giving and receiving is a law of life. So, at the highest level, the sadhaka gives himself to the Lord. That's the sacrifice at that level. At the lowest level, it's very simple. Okay. If you want to buy a watch, you have to pay for it. It is as simple as that. Okay. So you can see the gradation. There's nothing religious or nothing spiritual about it. Sacrifice is not willingly given. Nature exacts it by force. Okay. So there is a whole gradation of this concept idea. And why is this sacrifice necessary? Because the world is built by the divine on the principle of unity in multiplicity. If there is only unity, as at the highest level, there's no question of sacrifice. Whom are you going to sacrifice? Sacrifice comes in when there are 2, 3, 4, multiplicity. So at the lowest level, the multiplicity is there. There are now recent research has shown that the world population has gone up by 8 billion. Okay, 8 billion. So there is multiplicity here. So when you are but this multiplicity is all joined with a sense of unity. You can't exist all alone by yourself. You have to depend on others. Okay. So you have to depend on nature, you have to depend on animals, you have to depend on other human beings which are part of it. So this is the connectedness which is brought out very clearly in the Gita, the chapter 3, verse 10 and 11. So this is what he is describing. Sacrifice. Not in the sense of the normal word of sacrifice, pouring ghee into the fire and uttering mantras for a specific purpose. But sacrifice is the giving and receiving. And if it is not done happily, it is forced on you. Just as I said, you go to the market, you have to buy, you have to go give money and you will get it back. That also is sacrifice at the lowest level. But as you keep going higher and higher, it becomes purer, more noble and spiritual. And at the highest level, you give yourself to the divine. Okay, so this is what he said. But at the lower level, everything is a transaction between Prakriti and Purusha. Okay. All active existence must be, in its inmost reality, a sacrifice of works offered by Prakriti to Purusha. Everything, any action is a work. The word karma, you have to interpret correctly. Any movement is also karma. Nature offering to the Supreme and infinite soul the desire of the multiple finite soul within her. Okay. So nature is the Prakriti. She is doing everything for the pleasure of the Purusha at the highest level. So nature offering to the Supreme and infinite soul the desire of the multiple finite soul. There you go. Who is the multiple finite soul? Everything in the physical world, every form is a multiple finite soul. Even a stone is multiple because there are many stones and finite very clearly. But the divine presence is there even in a stone. Therefore, it is multiple finite souls. And there's a gradation even in the physical world. Stones, insects, unicellular creatures, bigger insects, smaller animals, bigger animals, finally man. So that's what I mean by multiple finite soul. The divine is there everywhere, within her. And within her means universal nature, contains all these multiple finite souls. Life is an altar. Now, the image of the sacrifice. Life is an altar to which she brings her workings and the fruits of her workings and lays them before whatever aspect of the divinity the consciousness in her has reached for whatever result of the sacrifice the desire of the living soul can seize on as its immediate or its highest good. Now, this is a complicated sentence, and we'll see he's talking of the gradation. Okay? Life is an altar. Okay? The sacrifice is being done in life. Life is the vitality, the prana in the physical world. Life is an altar to which she brings her workings. Nature is activating all her things, whether they be storms or anything, whatever she is doing. Okay? The movement of everything in the physical world, there are workings. And the fruits of her workings, there are also results. And lays them before whatever aspect of the divinity the consciousness in her has reached. For instance, at the lowest level, Prakriti is matter. Okay? At a slightly higher level, Prakriti is prana. Okay? And at a slightly even higher level, Prakriti is mind. So at every level, there is a soul. Okay? There is a soul of matter, there is a soul of life, there is a soul of mind. Okay? This is a concept that we have to very clearly understand. We think that matter has no soul, but there is a universal soul of matter. There is the Annamaya Purusha. Then there is the Pranamaya Purusha. There is a consciousness which is there, which is a Purusha, and it is there at all the levels. In Savitri also, when you read the triple soul forces, okay, these are the three triple soul forces. Annamaya Purusha, Pranamaya Purusha, Manomaya Purusha. Above that is the spiritual planes of consciousness. And at whichever level, the sacrifice is constantly taking place. As I said, at the lowest level, it is just the transaction between at a very, very ordinary level. But as you go on into slightly higher levels, the character of the sacrifice, the exchange, the mutual giving and receiving goes on changing its character. In the spiritual planes of character, it becomes you, whatever you don't do it for yourself. Your ego is there and you don't do it for yourself, but you do it for the Lord. So then you get the full result. At the lowest level, the result is very limited. At the highest level, it is infinite. You can actually become God. Okay? Note this next sentence. According to the grade of consciousness and being, which the soul has reached in nature. So this is exactly, the soul has reached in nature. It begins with Annamaya Purusha. Nature, matter, soul, if you want, in English. Okay? Then there is the Pranamaya, the Pranamaya, Shakti, soul. Okay? Then there is the mental soul. So whatever level, this Purusha enjoying what Prakriti is doing is there at all the levels. Okay? According to the grade of consciousness. To make it very, very concrete, I can tell you, businessmen are always offering they are worshipping Ganesh. Okay? Or someone knowledgeable people are worshipping Saraswati. So there is a slightly higher level. So this also is a sacrifice. You are giving to receive. You are worshipping Saraswati because you want knowledge. Okay? You are worshipping Ganesh because you want to be successful in business. Okay? It's as simple as that. According to the grade of consciousness, the soul has reached nature, will be the divinity it worships. So, if someone is worshipping Ganesh, it is valid at that level. And someone is worshipping Saraswati, it is valid at that level. When I am worshipping the mother, It's at a slightly even higher level. But the ego is always there and it's a mixed action. But the highest level, there is no mixed action, it becomes pure action. That's why you have the knowledge by identity. You become the divine, and the concept of sacrifice then ceases to exist because there's nothing to sacrifice. You have become the Lord yourself. Okay? So, according to the grade of consciousness and being, which the soul has reached in nature. Yeah, tell me.
1 minute. Here they are writing, sorry, Sherwin has written, living soul can seize on as its immediate or its highest good. Why its immediate or its highest good? Why that?
The result of sacrifice, the desire of the living soul, can seize on as its immediate or highest good. Because when you are sacrificing, let's say at this spiritual level, okay, I am going on sacrificing for years and years and years, but I am not getting the result. Therefore, that is the highest good will come a little later. Okay? But sometimes it's a very common idea that when you are asking for something, immediately it comes. The result has come immediately. Okay? So that is what he means by the soul can seize on as it's immediate. If you ask for something very simple, it comes quite quickly. But you ask for something very difficult, okay, it takes time. That's what it means. I don't know if I made myself clear.
Yes, absolutely clear.
Yeah.
Because we experience that here so often.
Yeah.
We ask something and then we say that if we ask that, she doesn't give. Why this she gives immediately? Okay. Very clear.
Let me give you a very, very simple example, and I don't mind saying it also. When I am studying my Sanskrit in the morning, sometimes I get a problem. And I try grammatically to solve it. I can't solve it. Okay. Then suddenly I remember that is there is a scholar in Sanskrit. Why don't I appeal to him? I say, hey Lord, why don't you help me with this? You won't believe. Immediately the answer comes. So that's the immediate. It's the simplest at a very, very low level. Okay. But if you are asking for a divine consciousness, you ask for your ego to disappear. You ask for help in getting rid of your selfishness. That takes time. It's the highest good takes a lot of time, not immediate. That's what it means. Okay. So, the delight which he seeks and hope for is and in the movement of the mutable Purusha in nature. Now, the mutable Purusha in nature. In the nature is defined as matter, life, and mind. Because as soon as nature goes above that, okay, it becomes not mutable at all. It becomes static. The immutable Purusha. If you remember, Kshara Purusha, Akshara Purusha, and finally the Uttama Purusha. So mutable Purusha in nature. And man, it's a psychic being. In the stone, it's an indeterminate divine presence. Okay, so that is a mutable Purusha. And in the movement of the mutable Purusha in nature, all is and must be interchange, whether you like it or not. Okay? So, everywhere.
Rangadhar, you just said that psychic is the mutable Purusha.
Yeah, that's right. Because the psychic does evolve, no? It does evolve. In fact, the divine presence in creatures is undeveloped psychic. What you remember, use the word soul. The soul is the undeveloped psychic. It's a
generally with Purusha, we mean something which is not moving, no? Who is stand still or who is behind the scene. He does so.
That's right. And psychic being also is very much behind, no? We don't see it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's very rarely that you see the psychic being. It's hiding. The Purusha is there in matter, it is there in prana, it is there in mind, it is there. And only when you go to level 2 of the spiritual planes, then it reveals itself. But in the lower plane of level 1, you will never not reveal itself. But the higher you go, it will reveal itself everywhere. Even in matter, it will reveal itself. Okay. So,
Okay.
so in the movement of the mutable Purusha in nature, all is and must be interchanged. The law of sacrifice, the law of interchangeableness. Okay. Mutual dependence, interdependence is an absolute law in the physical world. Note the word must. You cannot exist by yourself. And that's true at the political level, it's there at the individual level, it is there even at the plant level, it is there also in the matter level. Okay, this mutualness is there. Science, I'll give you examples for each. Okay, in matter, science has discovered that when you do something in one place, its effects can be very obvious in 100,000 miles away also. So that's a connectedness. And the connectedness is what sacrifice is all about. Okay. Then you come to life, plant level. Okay. Animals you take, when a predator comes below in the forest, all the birds will start shouting. They are warning the others. Again, a sign of connectedness. Okay. So even at the plant level, you'll be surprised. Narad, who is an expert in plants and all that, he told me something very striking. He told me that plants do connect and through their roots. All this has been researched and they have found. Okay. And the other experiment is there very clear. When you have, this is a scientific experiment that took place. They have got 100 plants in one room, all same plants. Then one person goes in and destroys one plant. Okay. Then the plants show signs of fear. Okay. If you put an oscillograph you fix to the, it will get a pattern which you can interpret as either pain or pleasure. The pattern will be the same every time. Next time, when that man who destroyed one plant comes into the room, even before he touches, the plants start vibrating and giving that same reaction. Okay, so there's a connectedness again. So I'm giving you examples of connectedness in matter, in life, and in mind, of course. Telepathy is a connectedness. Okay, so even at the political level, no one country can exist by itself. It cannot depend by itself. It has to interchange with others. Okay. So this is the connectedness that he's talking about. He's saying must be interchange. There's no question of whether or if and when. It must be. It is imposed by nature. That's what he's saying. And divisions must found themselves on some law of mutual dependence, each growing by each and living by all. We don't think of it that way. But I depend on my tailor, I depend on my doctor, I depend on my lawyer, I depend on my servant. I can't do everything all by myself. So this is the subtle principle of sacrifice at the lowest level. Okay. At the highest level, we have discussed, it becomes a mutual giving yourself to the divine. Each growing by each and living by all. Everybody benefits. Okay. The servant also benefits and you also benefit. Okay. The doctor also benefits and you also benefit. I don't know if in the ashram, doctors are benefiting. Materially, they are certainly not. Because they don't get paid. But they will definitely profit by their work offered to the divine. They will grow in consciousness. There is no doubt about that. So the fruit comes in various ways. It can be physical, it can be emotional, it can be mental with knowledge, or it can be with spiritual, it can be with consciousness, power and force. Okay, and consciousness. So it is always there. Where sacrifice is not willingly given, nature exacts it by force. Okay. They are very interesting. You see, nowadays I'm seeing so many videos, the police people are very corrupt. Okay. They go into a shop, they eat and they don't pay. Okay. So they are not following the principle of sacrifice. They are not paying. But then they get punished. Either the crowd comes and beats them up, and or they are punished in the police set up themselves. They are suspended. So that's what is nature exacts it by force. That's what he's saying. Okay, very clear. I'm giving examples to make it so clear, huh? Because sacrifice is very vague and abstract concept, but it is there everywhere. So, where sacrifice is not willingly given, nature exacts it by force. She satisfies the law of her living. The law of living is mutual interdependence. A mutual giving and receiving is a law of life, without which it cannot for one moment endure. And this fact is a stamp of the divine creative will on the world it has manifested in its being. So now look at this carefully. The divine creative will is imposing this, it is stamping it, okay? It's a stamp on the world. You have to depend on others because my principle of oneness is there everywhere. Okay, you are all connected. Don't think that you are unconnected. That's a big mistake that the ego makes. The ego thinks it can exist by itself. That's the biggest mistake it can make. Okay, so and it has manifested. The divine will is manifested where? Not outside itself, in its own being. Because at the highest level, there is only God. And if he is creating the world, he is not creating it out of himself. He is creating it in himself. Okay? Manifested in its being. So in one sentence, Sremda is giving you so many subtle ideas to go with it. The proof that with sacrifice as their eternal companion, the Lord of creatures has created all these existences. This is actually almost a translation of the Gita's verse. Okay, benefiting by each other. The universal law of sacrifice is the sign that the world is of God and belongs to God. So, it's very interesting what he's saying. The universal law of sacrifice is a sign that the world is of God. In other words, even matter is of God. So God is there even in matter and belongs to God. That also is there. Okay. Belongs to God at the highest level, is of God at the lowest level. And that life is his dominion and house of worship. See, is there? Everything in the physical world is a house of worship. That's made in that way. And not a field for the self-satisfaction of the independent ego, not the fulfillment of the ego. The world is not meant for fulfillment of ego. And if you try it, you will suffer. There will be consequences. That is only our crude and obscure beginning. But the discovery of God, the worship and seeking of the divine and the infinite through a constantly enlarging sacrifice, there you are. Constantly enlarging sacrifice is a gradation from the lowest to the highest, culminating in a perfect self-giving, founded on a perfect self-knowledge, is that to which the experience of life is at last intended to lead. So, at the lowest level, you are gathering experience, you are having an ego, and you are learning slowly, very slowly, unfortunately, not to depend on your ego, but to depend on others also. So, giving increases, cooperation increases slowly as you keep going up. Okay, that's what he's saying. And it is, knowledge has got a very big part to play in that. Knowledge is that which the experience of life is at last intended to be. So we have taken a good deal of time, but it's full of suggestions. And that's why I tried my best to bring out all the suggestions. I don't know if it has been of benefit, but we'll read the next one. We've got 5-6 minutes. We've got even 10 minutes actually. So we can read the next paragraph. But the individual being.
Shall I read?
Yes, if you have the text, please do. But the individual
being begins with ignorance and persists long in ignorance. Acutely conscious of himself, he sees the ego as the cause and whole meaning of life and not the divine. He sees himself as a doer of works and does not see
that all the workings of existence, including his own internal and external activities, are the workings of one universal nature and nothing else. He sees himself as the enjoyer of works and imagines that for him all exist and him nature ought to satisfy and obey his personal will. He does not see that she is not at all concerned with satisfying him or at all careful of his will, but obeys a higher universal will and seeks to satisfy a Godhead who transcends her and her works and creations. His finite being, his will, and his satisfaction are hers and not his, and she offers them at every moment as a sacrifice to the divine, of whose purpose in her she makes all this the covert instrumentation. Because of this ignorance, whose seal is egoism, the creature ignores the law of sacrifice and seeks to take all that he can for himself and gives only what nature, by her internal and external compulsion, forces him to give. He can really take nothing except what she allows him to receive as his portion. What the divine powers within her yield to his desire. The egoistic soul in a world of sacrifice is as if a thief or robber who takes what these powers bring to him and has no mind to give in return. He misses the true meaning of life, and since he does not use life and works for the enlargement and elevation of his being through sacrifices, he lives in vain.
This is all he is expanding on chapter 3, verse 12 to 16. Okay? That you have to live in a manner which is harmonious with others. You have to give to receive. So this is what, if you don't do that, you are a robber. Sena eva sa is what's used in the Gita. Sena eva, he is a thief. And his life is useless. Mogham sa jivati. His life is in vain. Mogham sa jivati. Verse 16, chapter 3. So, we have got 7 minutes, so we'll quickly go through. I think we can finish it. It's quite simple because we have discussed the basic idea, so it's not very difficult. Now, at the lowest level, fine, the sacrifice is there at the highest level, but you begin at the lowest level with the opposite of sacrifice. You live for yourself because you are in ignorance. Okay, so it slowly, you learn the correct way of sacrificing. Now, each sentence I'm reading, but the individual being, whether it be animal or even human beings, it doesn't matter, because even the animal learns, okay, by depending on others. Begins with ignorance and persists long in ignorance. Ignorance is there at the matter level, at the insect level, it is there at the animal level, and very much there also in the human level. It starts becoming less ignorance as you go to level 2 of the spiritual planes of consciousness. Acutely conscious of himself, that's the ego, he sees the ego as the cause and whole meaning of life and not the divine. This sentence is very interesting because this is the Mayavadic interpretation. Okay, the ego is what creates the dualities and the physical world. So when your ego goes away, the world becomes unreal to you. You enter into this level 2 of spiritual planes of consciousness. So they feel that the ego is the creator of the world. But that is not true at all, because then Srivna comes in with his own idea and the higher Vedanta and says, no, it's not the intermediate planes of consciousness that is creating the world, but the highest level. He is creating the world. So then the whole idea changes. The world becomes real. Okay. He sees himself as a doer of works. That everybody, we all feel that the work I am doing the work, but that's not true. And does not see that all the workings of existence, including his own internal and external activities, are the workings of one universal nature and nothing else. Okay? We can see it very clearly at the plant level. Okay? We can see that nature is creating plants, but the plant is not thinking that I am growing, I am taking sunlight, I am taking water from the ground. It doesn't think like that because no ego. Same principle applies to us, but because we feel that we have an ego, we feel that I am doing. And same is talking of internal and external. Internal, your own emotions and your own thoughts. And external, whatever you are doing in the physical world, actions, going from one place to another, talking to others, that's the external. Activities are the workings of universal nature. It is nature which is doing all that and nothing else. So when you go to level 2 of the spiritual planes of consciousness, you have the experience of the self, the Brahmic consciousness. And then you realize that you are only the witness. All the action that is taking place, even in your own body and your own being down below, is all being done by nature. You are not the doer. You are only the witness. Okay? So, working away and nothing else. He sees himself as the enjoyer of works. This is all when you are in ignorance. So I'm describing the level of ignorance. We feel that we are enjoying our works. I do something and I get a result and I enjoy my success. Okay. So, but enjoy can also mean experiencer. Okay. You can experience also failure and you can also experience pain. Okay. And suffering. And imagines that for him all exists and him nature ought to satisfy and obey his personal will. Now this seems very funny, but that is exactly what we all expect. Okay? The world, we would not admit it if we are told this, but everybody behaves as though the world is there existing for his exploitation. Okay? This is something that is there in the background of our mind. I have to make the best use and profit from the world. Okay? That's it. He sees himself as the enjoyer of works and imagines that for him all exists and him nature ought to satisfy and obey his personal will. I can give you another example, but I will keep that for later. He does not see that she is not at all concerned with satisfying him. He is an individual in ignorance and she is nature. Okay? So, he does not see that nature is not at all concerned with satisfying him or at all careful of his will. She works at a universal level. Okay, I may want that it should not rain today, and somebody else will want, the farmer will want that it should rain today. The nature is not going to take care of you or the farmer. She will do what she has to do, and what she has to do is determined by the highest level. Okay, the Uttama Purusha is the one who decides and tells nature to execute his will. Okay, that's what is happening. Nature also does not decide what is to be done or not to be done. That decision is taken by the highest, level 3, and nature only executing. Okay, so does not see that she is not at all concerned with satisfying him or at all careful of his will, but obeys a higher universal will and seeks to satisfy a Godhead. Level 2, universal nature is trying to satisfy level 3, Godhead, who transcends her and her works and creations. So the Godhead is level 3 because it's transcending her works and her creations. His infinite being, his will and his satisfaction are hers and not his. And she, nature, offers them at every moment as a sacrifice to the divine, of whose purpose in her she makes all this the covert instrumentation. This is not openly clear, but it is there hidden. Because of this ignorance, whose seal is egoism, the sign of egoism is, the sign of ignorance is egoism. The creature ignores the law of sacrifice and seeks to take all he can for himself and gives only to nature by her internal and external compulsion, and gives only what nature by her internal and external compulsion forces him to give. He can really take nothing except what she allows him to receive as his portion. what the divine powers within her yield to his desire. The egoistic soul in a world of sacrifice is as if a thief or robber. Chapter 3, verse 12. Okay. Stena eva saha. He is a thief who takes what these powers bring to him and has no mind to give in return. That's an egoistic thing. He misses the true meaning of life, and since he does not use life and works for the enlargement and elevation of his being through sacrifice, he lives in vain. His life is of no use at all to the higher purpose. Mogham sa jivati. So that completes the still in chapter 3, verse 16. So we have come to the end of our para, and next time we'll read only when the individual being begins to perceive. Okay, he is describing the absence of law of sacrifice in the lowest level of the physical world. Okay, when you are acting with ego, even when you are being very generous and you are feeding the poor and you are helping poor, you are giving scholarships, even then that is egoism. Okay, so there is a of even egoism. Okay, forward everybody.
Thank you,
Merci
Rangada.
Forward.
See you next time.
Okay.